Today is Tuesday, and we've still heard nothing on the Grayson McCall sweepstakes. It's quiet, maybe a little too quiet.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We mentioned on Monday and even a little bit last week, of course, NC State football has been heavily in contention for the quarterback services of one Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. It's now Tuesday, and I got to be honest, Kenton, I thought one way or another we might have heard something by now.
You know, I think that the thing is, I think the theme of this show should be relax. I think that we all are kind of sitting on pins and needles. We're all kind of sitting on the razor's edge about this thing and just what's going on? Let me tell you something. The reality of this thing is simple. Players make their decisions in the time in which they make them. At the end of the day, NC State has to do what's best for itself. And this is no disrespect. I don't want anybody to interpret this as I'm saying that this player isn't worth it or anything like that. This show is Locked On Wolfpack. This team is the NC State Wolfpack. It's not the NC State Grayson McCalls, not the NC State Brennan Armstrongs, wasn't the NC State Devin Leary's. The show will go on regardless of who is at quarterback. And to be quite honest, this is just me being honest. I don't think that he's the best quarterback that we're even in consideration for in terms of what the future prospects look like if he were to come. So let's relax a little. I'd like him to come to NC State, but don't get all up in the tizzy and ruin your day over this thing, okay? I know if you're listening to Locked On Wolfpack, you care about some Wolfpack ball like we care about some Wolfpack ball, but don't, relax. We still got – I would ask you to do this. Let me get in my Windhorse bag right here. Why are they having certain recruits come on their visits together? Tamarcus Cooley seems to be all but a done deal, and yet they're sending in a bunch of guys out the transfer portal to have visits at the same time as Mr. Cooley, who are undecided, whose crystal balls are very much not in NC State's favor. Why would they be doing that? Why would Cooley be hitting people up saying, maybe we should reunite? You see what I'm saying? Like, yes, Grayson is a very big piece. Yes, we are talking about the most important position in football. I'm not giving anybody any flack about that. I'm not giving anybody any respect. I understand the importance of the quarterback, but I'm saying y'all should get ready because that red light is about to light up some more and some more and some more coming on here. And if Grayson ain't the guy, that's all right because I saw this little unheralded quarterback in these green and white uniforms come in here and light this thing up like the 4th of July. And he's also coming along and having a visit pretty soon. So I'm just saying, don't lose your cool over this thing.
Let me pose it to you like this. A lot of people have said that they would like to get quarterback, or at least the quarterback commit, out of the way early in the process, as that could help, prodding some guys to ultimately choose State to be in this offense. And there's portions of that which I certainly agree with. So the longer that this Grayson McCall sweepstakes goes on, does that draw maybe less confidence that it will be McCall? Or, there is something to be said for, as this process goes on, there's going to be several more quarterbacks hit the portal. Of course, after bowl season, you're going to see more players hit the portal like we mentioned just yesterday. For NC State's standpoint, do you think, obviously they've identified McCall as a potential QB1 target here, but in the event that it doesn't end up going that way, there's so many other quarterbacks to pursue. Like we just mentioned, a couple of them. We'll talk more about this on Wednesday as well. But I guess to sum up my blabbering here, as this rolls on, what's your confidence that it will be McCall that comes to Raleigh?
So the more interesting thing, and I'm not, we know on this show, I don't tell you what I don't know. And what I know is originally, before Grayson visited, I heard that it was about 60-40 NC State. Now, for those of you who don't know, generally after a visit, you're hearing one way or the other, hey, there's a lot of movement on that needle. Now, I was hearing 60-40 before he came, 70-30 after he left. So I wasn't left with like he loved it here, and I'm guaranteeing, as sure as the sun rises on the east and sets on the west, book it, he's here. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell y'all that that's the case. I'm not going to tell you that he hated his time in Raleigh. I'm not going to tell you he loved his time in Raleigh and he's going to be here for next year. What I will say is there wasn't a ton of movement in the needle in terms of his visit. And again, I'm not saying that there was anything about the visit that was underwhelming or that he didn't like or that he loved. I did not get that information. What I did get is there was the folks that I talked to, nobody felt comfortable guaranteeing, hey, Grayson's coming here. That's just what I heard. Now, again, I could be wrong. They could be working out some numbers behind the scenes, and he's already like, hey, I'm on board. Let's just make sure that the bag right. That could be the case. But as we all very well know, if we talk about as long as the bag right, we've seen this in professional sports. Sometimes you get to that finish line, it's like, I ain't Shohei Ohtani. Don't defer none of my money. I need my pay. I need it up front. I need payolas on demand. So, and I hate to be saying that on the college show, right? This is to think when I started this thing.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the world we live in now.
And I was about to say, to think when I started this thing right after the pandemic, we weren't here. We weren't, but that's the nature that's the nature of the beast that we live in now. And so the reality of this thing is, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I'm not going to tell you, hey, I know for certain. I'm not going to tell you that. What I will say is in other instances, I've gladly told y'all, hey, silence here is bad. We need to hear something from this guy because this was our guy. This ain't one of those situations.
I, too, am not a big fan of speculation, but I'm going to tell you where I'm guessing the situation currently stands. You mentioned, crunching the numbers and looking at the bag. I think that's probably where we're standing here. And maybe it's not. And again, I'm sure this situation is not all about money. It's certainly not. You want to find a situation that's best for you in your last year of college football. But given that it's seemingly been narrowed down to NC State and UCF, I've seen a lot of UCF fans very confident online that Grayson McCall will be in the gold and black. But I think at this point, with everything that I've been reading, everything I've been hearing, kind of been expecting to see something push across one way or another around this time, and to still hear nothing, I would bet that some numbers are being tossed, maybe some gamesmanship is being displayed. I would bet, maybe you shouldn't bet at this point because you thought you'd hear already. I think probably before Thursday, you're going to hear something. That's just my indication.
And that's fair. All I would say is and again, this is no disrespect. If he wearing the red and white, I don't want to hear anybody saying, oh, you can't say, or look at you looking stupid. He had a good game. I would not clear the coffers. I just wouldn't. I'm sorry. There's a multitude of really quality players in the portal right now. There is a lot going on. And we all know what the deal is in terms of next year, everything lines up great for NC State to be very competitive for an ACC championship, which would pretty much be a de facto playoff spot. Yes, I know we got left out this year, but next year we're growing to 12. So anyway, I'm just saying I don't see a world where I feel fully comfortable saying, hey, whatever all of our collectives combined can do, back up the Brinks truck. I don't think that there's a single quarterback that's in the portal right now that I would say is worth that. That includes a Cam Ward. That includes a Dante Moore. He's a King Crusader, for Christ's sake. We can't be out here paying King Crusaders. Ew, gross. But you get my point. There's not a quarterback I'm looking at right now that I would say, hey, they need to, as much as we can give them. And I'm saying that with an outside knowledge of what the NIL landscape looks like. So if it is the reality that you can't get a quarterback that's worth his weight in salt for less than $400K, then I'll accept that as the reality. I just don't believe that's the reality. The multiple sources that I've spoken to regarding NIL and what players are signing for versus what certain websites are talking about as their value are two very different things. Players who have a reported value of 135 are going to schools for 10 and a free chicken fingers box from Raising Cane's. So,
and who knows, maybe in the coming weeks there will be a quarterback that would appear that might be worth all that money and some Raising Cane's. You never know. These situations are extremely fluid, but that's what makes it so fascinating.
Bring Raising Cane's to Raleigh. Bring Raising Cane's to Raleigh.
Please, Raising Cane's, if you're watching this, you know what it is.
I'm lying. I was 380 pounds messing around with Raising Cane's. My back had some extra back on it. Messing around with that chicken finger combo that removed the slaw, get the extra Texas toast. I don't need that. I don't need those troubles no more. I'm trying to be a healthy man. I'm trying to be reformed, Grayson. I'm trying to be reformed.
Up next, we're going to be taking a look into NC State basketball on Tuesday evening, making their return to PNC Arena, and what to expect as they take on the Skyhawks of UT Martin. Our first sponsor of the day is LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of over 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring is much easier when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within just 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and simply might not have the time or resources in order to hire. So thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. NC State basketball is back in PNC Arena on Tuesday night. Feels like forever since they've even played. I think it's been a week exactly, and even longer since they've played a game in PNC. They welcome the UT Martin Skyhawks into PNC Arena tonight. NC State is a 19.5-point favorite. Kenton, what are some of the things you're wanting to see here after a week layoff?
To quote Outkast, me and you, yo mama and yo cousin too, all want to see more MJ Rice. That's what everybody wants out of this team right now, and I hope that they deliver. But very seriously, I hope that even with MJ Rice, we continue to have good ball movement. We continue to have multiple contributors. We continue to have all those things. And I want to see the one complaint, and I know some people are going to say, oh, you're so growing to complain about this. The one knock on MJ Rice's 10 minutes on the court, he looked a little lost defensively in some of the rotations. He kind of seemed to be a bit out of place or not knowing where he should be in some regards. I'm not saying that he looked terrible, not saying he looked, but I'm saying I'd like to see, and this isn't just about MJ Rice, because this is actually about the defense at large, which was a problem that we saw against BYU. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they were knocking down tough shots, but there were also multiple times where our rotations were just a bit off. Guys didn't know who was supposed to be closing out, or it was like, oh, is that your man, or is that my man, or whatever the case may be. So as a unit, I want to see that. And obviously, like I said, everybody wants more MJ Rice. That's just the reality.
Rice, baby. Of course, I think I've watched that clip of his dunk like 76 times since a week. And I tweeted when the women's basketball game had the leakage in the roof on Sunday, I believe it was. I tweeted, this had to be because of MJ Rice shaking the building the other day. But no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head here. Everyone wants to see a whole lot more MJ Rice, but this is sort of what we talked about last week in introducing MJ back into the lineup now. It's a good time to do it because you need to get him back up to speed, especially because you have a big-time matchup with Tennessee on the very close horizon here. But, you know, some of the stuff we've looked at in this basketball team in that they're still kind of figuring out on nights where DJ Burns is not exactly DJ Burns, who can step up and kind of carry us the rest of the way. That could be a guy like MJ Rice, especially when you have a performance like he did in Reynolds. But, you know, DJ Burns, he's going to be fine. Ultimately, you have a couple bad games. Everybody goes through that sort of thing. But it is very important for NC State to continue to find their identity outside of a DJ Burns. Because, again, If he doesn't have it for one night and nobody else can pick up the slack, well, then you might see again what happened down in Oxford against Ole Miss. And we can't afford to have any more of those duds the rest of the season moving forward. So, and again, especially with the matchup on the horizon with Tennessee, you got to do everything you can to pull out a game like that, because that could be the difference if you're looking at potentially a bubble situation come March. A win in that magnitude would help you. But no, against UT Martin here on Tuesday night, you just want to see NC State absolutely take care of business from the jump. And we sort of say this sort of thing against all of the, you know, the smaller non-conference games, because that's how it should be. This team is too talented and way too deep, and you just got maybe one of your better players back to mess around with the Skyhawks on a Tuesday night. So I want to see us aggressive on the defensive end all night long, but that starts from the jump. Let UT Martin know they don't belong in the same gym as us, because they shouldn't, to be quite honest with you. Jaden Taylor's been on a little bit of a heater recently. I love what I'm seeing from Jaden Taylor. His game has certainly translated through the transfer portal this season. He's really stepped up in a big way. I'd like to see a bit more from DJ Horn. I think at times he's been a little bit streaky. You know, I think he's done fairly well with his limited ball handling responsibilities in
for sure
to Michael O'Connell. But probably those three, MJ Rice, Jaden Taylor, and DJ Horn, I want to see a lot from those three in this game on Tuesday evening.
I mean, and you know, that kind of goes back to what I was saying in terms of you want multiple contributors. You don't want, even if MJ Rice turns out to be everything that he was advertised to be plus some, you don't want a situation where, with all due respect, last year we got by because we had three guys like this. You could roll the ball out, get a bucket, right? You could roll the ball to Jarkel Joyner, he would get you a bucket. You could roll the ball out to Tuavian Smith, he would get you a bucket. You could roll the ball out to DJ Burns, he would get you a bucket. But the reality is that, number one, that's three guys that are fairly efficient or fairly good at you know, being that guy that can take over in isolation or in one-on-one situations. But more importantly than that, I mean, at the end of the day, even then, we have some defensive inefficiencies in terms of guys just knowing where they have to be. You know what I mean? Like that's the biggest thing for me personally. I need guys knowing where they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to be there, playing good, applying good pressure to the ball, not allowing every ball handler that decides to put their shoulder down to get to the rim an easy path there. And again, multiple contributors, show the depth, get your lead, and then allow the other guys to come in, allow the you know, next guys in to come in and display what they got, so that we can figure out what the best rotation is, what this looks like, and all that good stuff. And so that's probably what I'd ask for most.
Yeah, just we have to continue stacking. A good game turns into a good week. Good week turns into a good month. Good month turns into a good resume. Just keep stacking these wins. Up next, we'll be touching on the release of NC State's baseball schedule after a quick word from our sponsor. Our second sponsor of the day is FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right, $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Just here in a couple weeks in the state of North Carolina, this will become legal. Cannot wait to be actually talking about actual FanDuel with some actual bets on this here show. But this all gets started on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and continue winning this NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, last couple of minutes here on Tuesday. A little bit of an appetizer for some baseball fans like myself. The NC State 2024 baseball schedule has been released. A couple highlights on here. Of course, we'll talk much more about this in the near future. NC State's road schedule in 2024 is a bit of a bear. Now, a fun part of this is they're taking a February trip out to Hawaii. I believe they did this maybe close to 10 years or so ago. They've done this before. Have to imagine the guys are fired up about a February trip out to Hawaii. But, you know, interesting that we scheduled something like this, because NC State, a lot of NC State baseball fans kind of bark about the early non-conference games, and it feels like they've made an effort to strengthen that a bit this year. Before that Hawaii series, they have VCU here in Raleigh. VCU, for college baseball fans, is often a pretty solid. They're usually in the NCAA tournament as like a 4 seed. You often see them in there a lot. I believe just as recently as like 2021, they gave Carolina a run for their money in their own regional. But the ACC portion of the schedule is extremely difficult on the road. Of course, they got to go at Georgia Tech. I believe they go at Louisville, at Clemson, at Florida State, at Virginia. All of those series are extremely difficult, regardless of where you're playing. They could be here in Raleigh and still difficult because of the level of, competitiveness with these teams. But to go on the road, you're going to find out a lot about this 2024 baseball team in a hurry. Probably the beginning of April, you're going to start to see exactly who they are.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you this much, we're on the clock to see our main man, Coach Avent, get to that 1,000 wins. We're on the clock. He's right there. He's knocking on the door. And, obviously we expect that to get done in the out-of-conference play.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the beautiful thing of it. Just get it out the way, move on, get into all the other things and focus on being a much better team than we were last year. And I don't think that was a terrible team by any means. I just think that was a team that, there was always something. There was always something in the way, and I look at the Miami game last year as a perfect example, the one where we dug a hole early, battled all the way back. And then their first batter, Miami's first batter after we tied the game up, after coming back from, 5 or 6 run deficit, bink, over the fence. Like that was like a microcosm of the season last year.
It was.
And so you're hoping that this team can, kind of not run into those self-inflicted wounds of last year, the base running errors, the fielding errors. That's not a skill issue. That's a concentration issue. That's a I don't take this seriously enough to do the little things right issue. And so we don't need to see any more of that this year. If that gets cleaned up, I think this team has the opportunity to be pretty good next year.
Yeah, certainly excited to talk a whole lot more baseball in the near future. I believe opening day is roughly like 60 days away. It's kind of crazy how fast this year has gone, but getting the schedule out is a lot of cause for excitement. There's going to be a lot of new faces on this 2024 baseball team. Of course, we'll cover that in the near future as well. But nonetheless, a little bit of an early Christmas to get this schedule out with so many exciting possibilities on it. That'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in with us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box. We have plenty to choose from on Fan Friday. And as always, mash that subscribe button if you have not already. And if you already have, but you know someone that has not, tell them to hit that subscribe button as we're continuing to grow this thing. As always, we will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.